Queer News and Journalism is a Gay 45 original podcast published every week on Thursdays, where we come together to comment the topics in the weekly queer news published by our newsletter, The Nine. Subscribe to gay45.com to get the latest news every week. Welcome to the Deep Dive. So glad you could join us. We're digging into the latest from Gay 45 today. Pride Month just wrapped up, and wow, what a month. It really felt like a study in contrast. You know, you had these amazing, vibrant, global celebrations, but then also this thread of like serious activism, some really critical legal stuff happening. And those cultural moments Gay 45 always captures so well. It's a lot. Yeah, the latest newsletter really pack it in, just shows how much is going on constantly. So today we want to look at how Pride Month finished up around the world, that mix of celebration and challenge, the legal fights, and the cultural highlights too. Okay, let's really unpack this. So starting with Pride itself, what really stands out from the Gay 45 coverage is just the sheer power, the defiance in some places, alongside the joy the turnouts were. Well, pretty remarkable in some cities. Yeah, take Hungary. Budapest Pride, it was our 30th anniversary.
Incredible story there.
Right, and the turnout was estimated up to 200,000 people. That's their biggest ever.
And this was despite a government ban, wasn't it, on LGBTQ plus events near kids?
Exactly, a direct ban. But the mayor of Budapest, György Karácsony, he found this clever way around it, reclassified the march as a municipal event.
Smart move.
Such a statement, right? Really standing up for democracy. And Gay 45 was actually there, covering it live.
Imagine the courage involved, knowing you could face prison just for showing up.
And yet it stayed peaceful. Amazing. Then you pivot to, say, Mexico City. Their celebrations were just massive.
On a whole different scale, almost.
Totally. The head of government, Clara Brugada Molina, she led this thing where over 6,000 people made a giant human pride flag in the Zocalo.
With umbrellas, right? I saw pictures.
Right.
Visually stunning.
Yeah, and the main parade, a record 800,000 people. It just sounds like this huge wave of joy and solidarity.
But what's fascinating here, and Gay 45 dug into this, is the other side of the coin in Mexico City.
The critique.
Exactly. You had activists like Elaine Pinzon and Victoria Samano basically saying, look, this is great, but it's mere symbolism.
Strong words.
Yeah. They're pushing for real, tangible changes. Better health care, housing, jobs, mobility. Victoria Samano pointed out, dozens of trans women are still homeless in Mexico City.
That really puts the massive parade in perspective, doesn't it?
It does. It forces that question. What makes a pride successful? Is it just the numbers and the visibility, or is it about concrete improvements in people's lives? It's a debate happening everywhere, not just Mexico.
That duality, yeah. Celebration versus the ongoing fight for basic rights. We saw that in the U.S. too, didn't we?
For sure. New York City Pride, massive, over 1 million people.
Started right at Stonewall Inn, the historic spot. The theme was Rise Up, Pride and Protest.
Very fitting.
And they had Stonewall veterans like Martin Boyce marching alongside politicians like Governor Hochul. But there's that controversy, too.
The NYPD issue.
Yeah. The police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, wasn't happy that uniformed armed officers were barred from marching, called it discriminatory.
That's always such a tough one, isn't it? The police presence at Pride?
Definitely.
Because for so many, especially trans people of color, historically and even now, police presence doesn't feel safe. It feels like the opposite of Pride. But then others argue for inclusion, saying nobody should be excluded.
It puts organizers in a really difficult spot.
Absolutely. And the sad irony, as Gay 45 reported, is that violence still happened. 2 teenage girls were shot near Stonewall, 6 others bear sprayed. It ended the celebrations on a really sour, frightening note.
Just awful. A reminder that even in these huge celebrations, safety is still a major concern.
Definitely.
And San Francisco. Similar vibe, right?
Yeah.
Celebration mixed with protest.
Yeah, lots of energy, lots of joy, but also those signs, fuck Trump, fuck IC, real anxiety about rights being rolled back.
Gay 45 called it an atmosphere of resistance and queer joy. That phrase really captures it, I think.
It does. It feels like the defining mood for many prides right now.
Okay, but then we have to talk about places where it's not just a mix, it's, well, outright suppression. Here's where it gets really interesting. Or maybe alarming is the better word.
Like Turkey.
Exactly. Istanbul. Over 200 people arrested before the Pride Parade even started because it was banned.
And that ban's been in place since 2015, right?
Yes. The Istanbul Bar Association called the arrests arbitrary, unjust, and illegal. But the governor, Davut Gül, defended the ban, saying these gatherings undermine social peace, family structure, and moral values.
Which echoes President Erdogan's rhetoric. He's called LGBTQ plus people perverts before.
And the backdrop to this is that Istanbul's Democratic mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, who is seen as much more open, well, he's currently in prison.
It paints a grim picture for rights there.
It really does. And then you look at Kenya and Uganda.
Also facing incredibly hostile environments.
Right, especially after that Pan-African conference that framed LGBTQ plus rights as some kind of Western import.
Which is such a tired and harmful trope.
Totally. But queer communities there are observing Pride with defiance and resistance. Groups like Einand in Kenya are saying queer joy is resistance. They're doing workshops, art exhibitions, finding ways.
And sexual minorities Uganda sending out messages of solidarity. It's incredibly brave.
It really is. Testament to resilience. So moving from the streets to the courts and political arenas. Let's talk legal and political battles. Gay 45 always tracks these closely.
Crucial front lines.
In the U.S., the big one was the Supreme Court. The 6-3 decision upholding Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for minors, U.S. v. Scrimeti.
A major setback. Chief Justice Roberts wrote the majority opinion.
Yeah, arguing the law regulates medical procedures, not identity. It feels like semantic gymnastics.
It's a specific legal strategy. By framing it purely as regulating a procedure, they try to sidestep the core issues of identity, discrimination, and equal protection. It's a way to make it seem less about targeting a group and more about medical oversight.
But Justice Sotomayor's dissent was powerful.
Incredibly so. She accused the court flat out of abandoning transgender children. Didn't mince words about the life-threatening impact.
And Gay 45 pointed out this ruling could impact over 20 similar state laws.
Sets a dangerous precedent, absolutely.
But then on the flip side, some positive news from India.
Yes. That ruling from the High Court of Andhra Pradesh was huge.
Recognizing trans women legally as women. Explicitly rejecting the idea that womanhood is tied to the ability to bear children.
Groundbreaking. It came from the case of Pokala Shabana, a trans woman seeking protection under domestic violence law, Section 498A.
And the court said denying her that protection because she's trans is discrimination. Full stop.
A really important affirmation of rights in India.
And more progress in Colombia.
The Comprehensive Trans Law, Bill 122, got its first approval in the House.
It sounds incredibly ambitious. Covers healthcare, legal gender recognition, education, jobs, protection from violence, the whole gamut.
It really aims to be comprehensive. Of course, it faces opposition from conservatives like Maria Fernanda Cabal, but getting that first reading approved is a massive step.
Definitely one to watch.
Yeah.
And Poland, too, pushing for civil partnerships.
Yeah, the Minister for Equality, Katarzyna Kukula, submitted the bill, urging them to get on with it. She highlighted Poland's obligations from the European Court of Human Rights.
Interesting timing, too, right after a right-wing candidate won the presidency there.
Very significant political context. It shows the push continues even when the broader political winds might seem unfavorable.
So if we connect all these legal threads...
Well, it paints a really complex global picture, doesn't it? You see these intense legal battles playing out so differently depending on the country, the legal system, the political climate.
Yes.
Huge wins in some places, devastating losses in others, ongoing struggles everywhere else.
It really underscores that these rights are never fully static or secure. They're constantly being defined and fought for.
Precisely.
Now, speaking of political dynamics, that controversy in Germany was something else.
Oh, the Karlsruhe Pride photo. With the altered communist symbols.
Yeah. Linksjägensolid, a leftist youth group. They had a trans flag with the old East German hammer and compass, a rainbow flag with a hammer and sickle.
And that slogan, "No Pride Without Class Riot," with a Molotov cocktail image.
It kicked off a huge backlash. People were furious, talking about glorifying Soviet imperialism.
But the group defended it, right? Called it aesthetic provocation.
Yeah, and they made claims about East Germany sometimes being more progressive on queer rights than West Germany, which historians apparently dispute quite strongly.
It certainly stirred the pot, raised questions about history, symbolism, and acceptable forms of protest within Pride.
Definitely got people talking, for better or worse. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Beyond the marches and the courtrooms, what else did Gay 45 bring us in terms of culture and, well, just wider world insights?
Always some interesting nuggets there.
Like the UK intelligence appointment. Blaise Metreweli becoming the first woman chief of MI6.
Right, and her focus on diversity and inclusion, moving from Director General Q to C. Symbolic, but potentially significant.
And then there's the EU travel situation involving Georgia.
Poland pushing to suspend visa-free travel for Georgians.
Yeah, Prime Minister Donald Tusk citing rising authoritarianism and hostility towards LGBTQ plus people in Georgia, plus crime concerns. That's a pretty strong geopolitical move linked directly to human rights.
Using travel policy as leverage, it shows how interconnected these issues are.
And in Germany, a bit of cultural satire. The Berlin is not Salzburg festival.
Ah, yes. A humorous critique of neoliberalism's impact on the arts, quoting Mozart apparently. A very German way to protest, perhaps.
Maybe. And on the music front, that posthumous Sophie reissue.
Ah, the 10th anniversary of the Product singles, with unreleased tracks, too.
Such a loss, Sophie. But her legacy in reshaping pop music is undeniable. That reissue feels important.
Absolutely. A reminder of her groundbreaking work.
But while we celebrate legacies like Sophie's, other places are trying to erase queer culture entirely. Indonesia.
That proposed amendment to their broadcasting law, it's deeply concerning.
Seeking to ban all LGBTQ plus related content. Broadcast, online, everything.
The backlash from rights groups like Eris Pelangi is strong, and rightly so. They're warning it will worsen discrimination, suppress free expression, basically silence the community.
It's chilling. It's not just about entertainment. It's about visibility and voice.
Exactly. These cultural spaces, music, media, art, they are battlegrounds too. They reflect societal attitudes, and attempts to control them show where the fault lines are.
So true. And speaking of things to engage with, Gay 45's must-reads always offer great perspectives.
That piece by Archie Marks on Lord's persona problem sounded fascinating.
Yeah, how many selves can a pop star have? It digs into authenticity and public image in a way that feels relevant way beyond just pop music, you know?
Definitely. And Nicole Lee's piece on Ireland's non-binary passport problem, I just wanted to get home safe. That sounds vital.
It highlights those everyday bureaucratic hurdles that can have huge impacts. And the live transmission Gay 45 did from Budapest, that's unique journalism.
And the quote of the week this time from James Baldwin.
Wow. I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain.
It just cuts right to the heart of so much of what we've been talking about, doesn't it? The resistance, the backlash, the psychology behind prejudice, it's profound. Makes you really stop and think.
It really does. And for lighter fare, Gay 45 has those great recommendations. Film of the week, Big Boys.
Heard good things, a comedy, but deals with gay love and male mental health.
Sounds like a needed mix. And the book of the week, Hamajang Luck by Makana Yamamoto, sci-fi crime.
Intriguing. And music of the week, Japanese breakfast for melancholy brunettes and sad women, described as romantic, lush, pensive.
Nice.
And even the quick conversation starters have interesting bits, like that tech research linking addictive phone use in kids to suicidal thoughts.
Oof. Yeah, sobering stuff. It really shows the range Gay 45 covers each week. Well, that was quite the journey through the latest Gay 45 insights. What a wrap-up to Pride Month.
It really was.
From those incredible acts of defiance in Budapest and the massive crowds in Mexico City, to the really tough legal news from the U.S. Supreme Court, and the quiet, brave resistance in places like Turkey, Kenya, Uganda.
It's a global picture, constantly shifting.
Absolutely. And this deep dive, hopefully, helps you make sense of it all. It's about understanding that resilience, the ongoing fight,
Right.
but also the joy and protest that keeps pushing things forward. Staying informed is key, isn't it?
It truly is. And seeing how progress and backlash can happen at the same time in different places, or even the same place. Every court case, every parade, every piece of art Gay 45 highlights, it's part of that bigger story.
Yeah.
It just underlines the need for constant awareness, constant advocacy, because understanding this complex reality is really the first step. Maybe the real deep dive isn't just unpacking the news, but thinking about how we engage with it, what we take away.
A really good final thought. Next week, more news, hopefully better news. You can also listen to any of our articles. Visit gay45.com to read more quality journalism.